Okay, so I filled that information in, and now my account is linked. So we can say, okay, all good. And we can pick up before we left off. So we created our repository, and there are a couple of things that we can now do. The first is we can pull changes down, and we can so that we can get any new updates that have been made, and we can also push the changes from our machine up to the remote server. So we'll actually switch over to pushing first. So to push to the server, we're going to go to version control, git push, and we're going to push the files, and you can see that it's pushing to the machine, or pushing to the remote server. It's now done, and if I pop back over here now to GitHub, and I refresh the page, hey look, my stuff's up here now. So like GitHub is like, if you're collaborating with a partner, is like your intermediary point. You guys will both push changes to the server, right? And then once you've pushed your changes, you'll notify your partner, hey hey friend, I've made some changes, go ahead and get them. And now we'll show you how you would get those changes. So the way that you get the changes is you go to version control, git, and if you just want to get the changes, but you don't want to update any of your code, you would say fetch. And this would go get the changes. There aren't any new changes that I made there, so we're not really going to see anything happen. The other thing that you can do is version control git pull, and this will say to bring down the changes that you've made on the server and merge them into our current project. Again, we're right up to date right now, so we're not going to see any changes happen, but I'll show you how some things will change in 1 minute. But let's talk about merging first. So if you want to merge two branches together, it's git merge branch name, and that will take whatever's on the specified branch name and merge it into your current branch. It just means take all the changes that were made there and put them into your branch, or put them into your branch, right? And again, they'll do all the changes that were in that project. There are two types of merges. The first is the fast forward merge, which just means that branch is ahead of your current branch, and Git can automatically incorporate those changes. The other type of merge is a conflict merge, which is something that you have to resolve. There might be like two differences between these files, but one file's not ahead of the other. Like maybe you and your partner both edited the same parts of a file, but you guys had made two different branches, and now you're trying to merge together into a single branch. Well, there would be conflicts because there are different edits, and Git doesn't know which one it should take. Should it take yours? Should it take theirs? Should it take some combination of yours and theirs? It doesn't know. So we'll have to resolve that merge, which I'll show you guys how to do that in a minute. So over here, let's say we wanted to bring the changes from our Spanish branch into our current branch. What we would do is we click down here, click on Spanish branch, and say merge into current. And now our changes have been brought in into this branch of our project. And they're now up to date. Because before we had previously branched off a master to make Spanish, and in Spanish we've done some changes and then saved those, Spanish is now ahead of where our master branch is at, right? And so when I merge them back into master, since I haven't made any changes to master, right, any conflicting changes, we're just able to bring those updates right into line. And again, if I want to go push them, the control shortcut is Command-Shift-K. So we'll go and we'll push those changes to the repository. And now I'll show you an example of a conflict happening. So over here, I'm going to change this line from garbage to, do something special, right? And then I'll make a commit on my machine. Did something special. Is that what I said? Yeah. right? Now over here on GitHub, to kind of give you an idea of like what would happen if your partner was making those changes, we'll dismiss this for right now. Maybe our partner goes in here and they've made some changes on their own machine, and then they've pushed these changes up before you were able to push your changes up, right? So we'll edit this file. And again, your partner wouldn't be editing it this way. They would have made edits on their own machine and pushed them. But this is the closest way that I can show you that happening. So, right? So maybe your partner, did something amazing, right? So, right, they edited that same line, and it's now something different than what I did. And then here, did something amazing. And then we'll commit our changes. So now you can see that the server has different changes on that same branch than what I have, right? And one of them is not necessarily ahead of the other, right? We've kind of diverged here. Like your partner did something different on the master branch, and I've done something different on the master branch, right? I did something special, they did something amazing, but they're both kind of like two forks off of master, and not one is ahead of the other. So if I attempt to push my changes here, we're going to get rejected, right? Because the push was rejected because those changes aren't up to date. So what we have to do is we're going to have to download the changes that our partner made, merge them together into a single coherent result, and then push those changes back up. So first thing I have to do is I'm going to pull my partner's changes, which again, a pull is just a fetch followed by a merge. And if you look over here in the background, you can kind of see what a Git has. So over here at head, this is what we have, right? We did something special, and our partner did something amazing. That's their version. So in resolving this conflict, we have a few different options. We can either accept our version if we believe our version of the file is the most correct and up-to-date version, and that would leave us with do something special, right? We could say that no, our partner actually has the most up-to-date version. What's on the server is the best version of our file, and it has the right stuff. So we can accept their version, and we'll do something amazing. But quite often what ends up happening is your partner's done some good work, you've done some good work, and now you need to take both of your guys' good work and combine it together into a final solution, right? In some special way. It depends on what things have been edited. If that's the case, right, and neither one of them is the most up-to-date, you're going to have to select the merge option. And this will give me some revision control. So right now, this guy on the left, that's my version. The guy on the far right, that's the version that I got from GitHub, right? My partner's version of the project. In the middle is what I'm going to end up with. If we click on the left-hand arrows, it's going to accept my change. If we click on the arrows over here, it's going to accept their change. And if we click on the X's, we're just going to be like, I don't want that, ignore it, right? So there are some options where we could do is we could say like, I want to accept mine, and you notice that line got replaced with do something special. Then PyCharm will give us the option to accept our partners, and our partners thing would go beneath it, and now all of our conflicts have been fixed. And we can go ahead and complete our changes here if we wanted to, right? There may be some other times, though, where we need to combine the results together. And again, you can just type code here in the middle if it needs to be done. But maybe we want to do something, special amazing, right? And then I could dismiss my partners, and we're going to end up with a combined version of both of ours. But again, what this actually ends up being for your project is going to depend on your project and your code and what you have and what makes sense. So I can't really give you a hard and fast rule for what you should end up doing here, besides do something that makes sense for you. And then we're done. We can apply our changes, and we're finished. And then if we now want to put those changes up onto GitHub, again, Control-Shift-K, our merge has been complete. It's now ahead, and it will now be updated on the server. Any questions so far? Okay. Merging. If you're on the command line and you wanted to select particular versions of people's files, you would say git checkout --rs, and then our file name to select your version, the version that you have, and then git checkout theirs to select the version that you got from the server. Right? If you had some merge conflict, what was being merged into. If you're doing it on the command line, what you end up doing is you manually edit the files to be what you want them to be, right? So you go through your text editor and you edit them. Then you re-add them back to the repository by doing git add file name to mark that conflict as resolved. And then you would do git merge once again to complete the changes. Let's see. So there is something called rebasing, which is kind of like changing your history. And all the commands that we've talked about up till now, they can't screw you over, right? Nothing you do will break anything because you'll always be able to go back in time to a previous version of the commit to get your old stuff. Rebasing is one of the commands that changes the history of the repository, so it can actually cause you to lose stuff when you're doing it, so you need to be careful if you do decide to use it. What it ends up doing is it will replay the commits from your current branch onto the new branch. One way of thinking about this is that it'll make new base the new point from where you branched off your current branch from. It can be nice because it cleans up your branching history, but again, it can cause problems if you do it incorrectly. So I would say use merge most of the time. If you do decide to rebranch, the hard and fast rule that you need to follow is never rebase something that's been pushed to the server, right? So if you've ever pushed it to the server and somebody else has access to that branch, never rebase it. It will cause problems. Only rebase on your current repository stuff that you have if you want to clean up your own history before you commit. So here's what rebasing looks like. So here's our commits in time. So commit 0, then we had commit 1, commit 2, and then we decided to branch off, right? So we have C4 and C3. When we decide to do a merge, we create a brand new commit that comes from both C4 and C3 because we've merged those two guys together. So if we're going to rebase though, so if we, for example, we check out experiment, which is the C4, right? Here's the commands, you can see them up here. If we check out C4, right, which is the experiment branch, and then we rebase onto master, it's saying take C4 and apply it so that its new base, where it comes from, is going to be at the end of master, wherever master's at. So we moved C4 from here to here, right? That commit. So we've changed the history so it doesn't look like we ever really had this experiment branch at all. Again, this can make your history look nicer, but again, replaying those commits will cause you to have to do lots of merges, potentially, or like merge conflicts, which can be a bit painful. And then so if they check out master, then they have the master branch here. So maybe like a more interesting rebase is he wants to rebase onto master server client. So here's server, here's client, and he wants to rebase onto master server and client. So it's going to combine these changes together that have been split off into a single change, well, two different changes, the server and client, whichever ones come farther ahead. So here's where they kind of branched off. They branched off from C2. So here's client. So we can have a new branch where it'd be C2 followed by C3, C8, C9, which we can see that kind of right here, C3, and then I guess C4 because maybe they were the same, and then C10. but it's kind of changing history, but I wouldn't recommend doing it, and I almost never use the rebase command, so I'm not super familiar with it, but you may see people do it. Its main thing is to make the history look a little bit nicer, so it's not so staggered. Some other things. Again, we already talked about when you can rebase. If you want to access older commits, you can do git log. This will show you the hashes of previous commits. And you can say git check out that hash number. Over here in PyCharm, what you can do is you can click on version control tab down here in the bottom. If you click on log, it'll show you how the project has changed. So here we had initial commit, added our git ignore, made the greeting in Spanish on the Spanish branch, added some garbage, and then we kind of like did that split off where we did something special and we did something amazing, and they all got re-merged back together. If we want to go back to a previous version of our project, we can click on it, right click, and then say check out reversion whatever, and now I'm back on this version of my project, which just has do something awesome. Or if I want to go like all the way back into the beginning, I can say check out this revision number, and now I'm all the way back where we're at the very beginning of our project with hello world. This is why it's nice to have lots of commits, because you're able to move back into time where you want to. And then again, if we want to switch back to our project, we would do git. And notice like over here, not only has this file changed, but what file over here is missing? The git ignore, right? Because when I took a snapshot of this particular the project at this particular point in time, that file wasn't there, so it's not here now. But again, if I switch and I go back to say my most up-to-date branch, I want to check out master. Boom! Hey, it's back. Right? So having those different versions of your file is really easy with Git. If you ever need to go back to one, that's fine. There are some other options where you can do things like, I want to reset my current branch here. You're like, well, whoopsies, I made some commit and I didn't really like what I ended up doing, and I want to go backwards in time to something previous. You can say, move my branch back to here, and we'll be at this point in time. That's older commits. Over here, if we make some changes that we don't like, and we want to go back to what this file looked like at the beginning, we can go to version control, git. Is it roll back now? Maybe it's roll back. You can say roll back, and all those changes since the last commit are now gone. But again, this will get rid of all of the changes. And then again, if like you need to reset back to some particular branch, there is like version control, git, and then you can say like, I want to reset my head back to, I need to reset head. Then you would say like some particular commit, but probably the easiest way of doing that instead of going through that command would be something like this. Reset current branch to here, and that'll make your current branch move back to this point in time. So over here, I'll just say soft for right now. Soft, if you do hard, what'll happen is if you do hard, you'll actually lose the files and they'll be erased from the file system. Whereas soft, all it would do is end up changing like where my pointer is at in the project. So I could say like reset, and you can see that, look, master moved all the way back here, right, at this point in time. So now we're at this portion in the project where master's at, even though we do have stuff that's ahead of time. And again, we might, again, reset our head back to here to be back to where we're currently at. Again, we'll just say soft to make the changes. But if you actually want to delete the files and you're sure you want them gone out of your life forever, do the hard. It'll erase the files then. Again, to use Git effectively, some tips I have are to use lots of branches. Again, anytime you have some new idea or new feature or new thing you want to try out, make a branch, try it out. You like it? Great. Merge it back into your original branch. That's your main branch you're working on. You don't like it? Just switch back to your main branch, and those changes that were made, no harm, no foul. You just spent some of your time doing that. Again, commit frequently. The closer in time your commits are, the easier it is to take those snapshots and go back in time to see what's changed. Large changes are kind of like hard to figure out what's changing between them. You know, if you changed 20 files and you've changed like 1,000 lines across all of them, and then you go and you commit, you know, trying to figure out what changed between this version, this commit, and the next one is really hard. Or if you had made a lot of small commits along the way, seeing what small changes you made along each time is probably going to be easier to track, and it'll be easier to figure out where you introduced bugs into. If you're working with a partner, it's really important to like pull and push frequently, because the more you and your partner do separate work, probably the harder it's going to be to merge everything back together. You'll probably end up with more conflicts. I would also say though, like if you're working with a partner, communication is key, because if you and your partner live in your own separate worlds, right, you might as well just be working alone, right? There's no benefit of the partnership. And if you actually want the maximal benefit of the partnership, what you would end up doing is just always working side by side and programming together at the same computer. And then, you know, talking out ideas, seeing what you want to do. What do you think? How are we going to do this? That'll actually get you the most learning benefit out of having a partnership than say, I'll do this part, you do that part. And then there's some more information. And then again, if you're like, how do I do this in Git? Google, how do I do that in Git? You'll find tons of information about how to do that. Do you guys have any questions before we head to class? Okay, hopefully you guys do start using the tool. The more that you practice using the tool, the better you're going to get using it. So if all you do is listen to me today and then never touch Git, you're going to suck at it. And again, if you need, there will be a quiz coming up about Git. And so if you need to like look up what the commands are, the commands again are like all on the slides.